Oh man, if y'all just heard the pre-show that was going on before we got into hopefully the actual show is better. Um, Look, I think that the NBA season is already off to an interesting start. And if you're watching this, thank you for watching. YouTube.com/Bryan Fonseca is the channel. To my right, yes, my right.
You're right. Maybe the screen left. I don't know.
It's on the screen. Yeah, it's actually my left in person, but who cares? Jarod Hector's here from TrueHoop. If you're a real basketball lover, basketball fan, you follow TrueHoop because TrueHoop has the really in the weeds type of smart shit that a lot of people are seeking out nowadays. And hopefully you like me as well. So we're here on the YouTube channel. We usually talk basketball, we usually talk boxing, and some other things around sports. We're going to be doing these live streams. I'm going to try to do them once a week, along with other stuff I'm doing independently and then other work. I just want to plug this real quick. Have a new story up now on Action Network about whether or not the Olympic bump actually exists. And I mentioned this because a lot of people came here from my coverage of the Olympics, and we talked about in that piece, and it's not terribly long because I had some help with it, but basically about whether or not playing in the Olympics actually helps you in the following NBA season. And there are some examples, some pretty surprising examples that I found of that working. Now, there's also a few examples I laid out on the other side, but go check that out. That's on Action Network. Does the Olympic bump actually exist? Okay, Jarod, let's get into it because
yes, sir.
Last night was interesting to say the least. We had the New York Knicks in their first game with this new look team, and they got absolutely dog walked by the Boston Celtics. Like
mollywalked, as people often say.
Immediately. I want to ask you, just what were your initial impressions? I have some thoughts on this as well, but I want to toss the floor to you and be a good host.
I think the and by the way, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk hoops with you, my guy. I think the Celtics are an interesting team in that, of course, they're the defending champions. I think Joe Mazzulla is an interesting head coach in that he kind of, and I hate using cliches, so I'm going to use one. He marches the beat of his own drum and is a very different kind of dude. And I think the Celtics kind of feed off that and like it. And I think every year coaches have this, right, Bryan, which is there's some kind of theme or mantra for the season, right, to get these guys rallied up and rallied behind. And I think for Joe, it's not so much about defending as much as it is, and these motherfuckers think you guys stink. They don't think you're any good. Like, right, he's really getting it into them like, man, they're talking about the Knicks are going to be legitimate threats to us, like all this kind of thing. And I think he made it a point to be like, let's come out tonight or last night and show, man, we are for real and we're legit. And that's kind of what I saw last night. I saw a team that wanted to make a statement to the league as sort of like on opening night with only 2 games, right? So one of the marquee franchises in the Boston Celtics, let's come out and let's show people what we're all about. And be dog walked, like they just mollywopped those fools. And I was like, look, and honestly, there was a defense, of course, they played, which was, the multiple efforts, the swarming to the ball, and then they shot the lights out. And look, if the Celtics are going to shoot 47% from 3 all season, they might not lose a game, right? Like, now granted, they're not going to shoot that well all year, but like that, if you play them and they make 29 threes, you're going to lose. That's just it. Like the math just works out that way. You're going to lose. I don't know what else to tell you. It is what it is.
It's so annoying to play against, I would imagine. So disheartening. The Knicks shot 33s in that game. Yeah. The Celtics made 29 out of 61. Right. Now, the 61 could look a little faulty because at the very end,
they were just shooting and throwing them up. Right.
They were just throwing them up because they were trying to get that record for 30 made threes in a game. They ended up tying the record for 29, which welcome to that's got to be the best like ring night performance ever made.
I think so, because ring night's often weird, right? Teams often struggle on ring night. It's the pregame is longer because of all this crap you're still thinking about last year. It was so fun. C's came out and were like, none of that, man. They came out like aggressive.
Like, I don't know if people know this, but the meme that Alonzo Mourning is like kind of shaking his head on the
Yeah,
bench and then he's like making
yeah,
that face. That's from a ring night performance where the Heat got destroyed.
yeah,
Again, I
yeah.
think against the Bulls. That
Yeah,
was from
that was their
2006.
first their first title in '05 with
Yeah,
Wade and
yeah.
Shaq. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It was from that season. And yeah, they got destroyed. I don't know. I still don't know why he made that. But it's a great, it's a
It's
great
one of the best NBA memes we have because you see he just looks so despondent, like. But then he's like, but on the other hand, like we did win a title, right? Like it's like, all right.
the next thing here is karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges.
Yeah,
Them specifically, I already see the concern. And I would say, like, listen, it's one game and it's also like it's Boston. Like, this is the
the
measuring
best team.
stick performance. You got your ass whooped. It's October. You have time to figure this out. That said, it didn't look amazing. And Mikal Bridges in particular found a rhythm in the
Hmm.
second half, but
Hmm.
not in the first half at all. So, I mean, what do you think? I guess not so much from this performance, but what do you think it's going to take for them to get acclimated? What that process is going to look like?
Time. I mean, guys, that trade happened right before training camp officially started, right? Like literally the day before is when that cat trade went down. So I don't know if fans know this, but players come into their home cities usually beginning of September. And while training camp doesn't officially begin on the books, wink, wink, nod, nod, till whatever that date in October is, these guys are all together at the facility playing and working together. That's valuable time and reps that Cat did not get with these guys. So it's going to take some time to incorporate him. And he's a different kind of offensive player they're not used to having, right? It's going to take time. Same with Mikal Bridges. What I would say with Bridges, particularly, you mentioned his shot, he found a rhythm. One of the things that my podcast partner, Coach Thorpe, likes to say is if you're flipping a coin and you get heads 10 times in a row, tails isn't worried because it's going to come back around, right? That's the law of averages. Like the shot will start falling again. Like it just is what it is. So I'm not worried about that with Bridges. As you said, he found a rhythm in the third half. My big thing for him is that can he be the defensive key he's always been, and taking what he learned in Brooklyn as that primary guy, can he use some of those? Because he won't have to be the primary guy now. Can he take some of that and use it with second units in New York and catch and shoot threes and all that kind of thing? So I'm not worried about them from that standpoint. I will say, Tibbs is going to have to address the karl-Anthony Towns defensive situation because in drop coverage, the Celtics attack that every time. The minute, and it wasn't just Towns, it was Jericho Sims, whatever big was in the game they brought into action. If they were in drop, that three was going up. They were letting it fly, right? And they made them tonight. They may not make them next time. Are you going to push up? He's going to get driven by. They have to kind of figure out what they want to do defensively. Again, it's early. It's game 1 of 82. Do not panic. I still think the Knicks will win 50 plus games this year and be, I think in my mind, I don't know where you stand on this. I think they'll be the clear number 2 seed because I don't know about Philly right now. We'll talk about them later.
I have another team that I might like as a 2 seed. We can get into that later because they're actually on my league pass list. Only because the Knicks, I don't think like regular season success. While I do think they're going to be good in the regular season,
Right.
like their over under, for example, was
Yeah.
54.5. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's kind of high.
A little high. Okay.
Like,
Because you think it's going to take a little more time for them to work with Cat and Mikal and get that all flowing.
and also they're not as deep. And
Yeah.
the key to their success in a lot of ways last year was their depth. And today or last night, the first person off the bench was Jericho Sims.
Yeah.
Now I know why that is because from a basketball coaching
Right.
perspective, Tom Thibodeau wants to stagger the minutes between Jalen Brunson and karl-Anthony Towns so they don't get their ass whooped when both of them are off the floor. It's something that other coaches are trying to do better at also. So that's fine, but you bring in Jericho Sims as your sixth man essentially, and immediately I was like, oh, okay. Now, Knicks fans who are out on Jericho Sims, I will say, like, get used to this at least for the short term because he is on the last year of his contract. And when you have a young player on the last year of their contract, you're going to see what they have for the first couple months of the season. And if it doesn't work out, you move on. The Miami Heat just did this with Omer Yurtseven, and then they did it with Orlando Robinson, and now they drafted Khalil Ware in the first round. I'm not saying the Knicks are going to automatically draft a big. I don't know what picks they're going to have left to do that, but
That's also true.
But at some point, like the cycle is going to keep turning, whatever. They also do have a second round pick on their roster, Hawk Purdy, who we just saw get some playing time. So maybe that ends up actually being him. We'll see. Some people are high on him because of what he did in the preseason, but it's too early to tell. But ultimately, like their depth is going to be a question for me. Cameron Payne looked okay. I thought Miles McBride
Yeah,
looked great,
he can shoot it. He can shoot it.
but you're gonna need some more juice coming off that bench. All right, real quickly, Lakers Timberwolves. Did you get all fuzzy inside when the LeBron James and Bronny James, checked in at
Yeah,
the same time? I thought it was cool,
right.
and we talk about equality in certain things. I just say like, listen, there other people thrive off of nepotism all the time, so I'll allow LeBron
Yeah,
James of all people to do it.
yeah. I like. I don't care that who cares? Like this happens all the time. Now I'm gonna also sound like a stick in the mud and saying like I also don't care that they shared the floor together. Like I know it's a sweet moment. The Griffies were in the house. Ken Sr. and Ken Jr. Everybody knows first father and son duo in baseball. Like all that.
Good
Like
photo, great
and
photo.
a great photo op and in a way I'm kind of glad JJ did it like early to get it out of the way.
Yeah,
So hopefully they won't have to answer this question again. And actually, what I hope they do is send him immediately to the G League now.
yeah.
And just because again, using my podcast partner David Thorpe, who you all know, who listen to TrueHoop, is a player development coach, right? He coaches your favorite players in the NBA right now on getting better. He's like, look, Bronny's 4 years away from being a helpful NBA player. Like, and he ain't gonna get better sitting on the Lakers bench. Like, let him go to the G League, get his ass kicked, by the way, in the G League, learn and get better. And then as he does and improves, which is why I was always against him going here, because it's being in this organization, because I'm like, it's just going to be nonstop questions. Like, I wish you would have gone to your guys, to the Heat, right? Like away, you go down to what's their G League team?
It's not the Defenders anymore.
Do they even have it? Are they out?
It could be the South Bay Lakers. Let me
Okay.
check.
So like, go.
It is the South Bay
South Bay.
Lakers.
Oh, so maybe that's why. Okay, they want him over there. So fine. You just do that where you're able to work on your craft and get better as an NBA player, and then we'll see, what kind of improvements you can make. But again, from a marketing and a phone and a photo and warm and fuzzies, yes, checks all the boxes. But we can move on now.
Yeah. And typically a guy like Bronny James, in terms of skill set, would be in the G League. Well, would actually probably still be in college, but
Correct.
would be in the G League. And we'll see how he does there. I wonder if they're concerned that if they do send him there and he doesn't play well at all, and then they have to bring him back. Like, but this is part of the part of the equation.
And that's going to happen. He's going to go there and not play well. Like, that's going to happen.
Like the G League,
the G League is fucking good, man.
There's a video of Anthony Edwards talking shit to Bronny James like immediately as he gets on the floor, which I mean, Anthony Edwards is great.
I mean, listen, that's it, man. You know that's coming. That's coming.
But like what I'm saying is like it's gonna be worse with the G League because them dudes are hungry. Them dudes don't have it. Them dudes do not have long-term security contracts. They've been on buses. They're pissed off. They're not eating the finest meals and things of that nature. They're not.
They know you LeBron's son. Oh, yeah. They coming for that dude's neck.
They're not staying at the Four Seasons or a Marriott suite. None of that shit. You know what I mean? Like it's very much not. So yeah, they're gonna be talking wild reckless to Bronny James. So we'll see. But ultimately, like great moment. In a game that wasn't even the story to me. Anthony Davis was.
Yeah, he looked really good.
I don't know if that's gonna continue all season long, but it was encouraging to see him do that against Rudy Gobert because he doesn't always do that against elite defenses, and everyone's sort of been waiting. When is Anthony Davis going to take this team over, put him on his back, etc.? And after LeBron just played a lot of basketball, went to the Olympics, did what he did, is turning 40 in December. Yeah, now would probably be the time, AD.
Bryan, he ain't gonna average 36 and 16 this season, but if he plays the way he played last night, again, a little reminder for folks who don't remember this. AD played 72 games last year, so
76.
76 broadcast. Okay. So he played a full season last year. So if he's able to do that and play hard like he did last night, this Lakers team's gonna be. I mean, people like to forget and clown him, and you can blame TNT and Inside for all their jokes on AD over the years. I mean, this is one of the great players that one of the great prospects and one of the great players we've seen in this league.
Future Hall of Famer.
Correct. And so if he plays with that, again, this is the bet LeBron made when he brought AD over here. This is the guy young enough that when I'm into my late 30s and early 40s, he can carry the load. Now, that hasn't quite happened consistently, but if this is the year that he does it, this team will be very good. And this game was in very much a throwback, right? To that kind of basketball that certain people like played. I mean, it was, I mean, let's be honest, it was some ugly looking ball at times.
Which I appreciate.
I
loved game 5 of the WNBA final. Disgusting. Just every point seemed like a chore, just bricks everywhere. I love watching players and teams work through the nastiness of basketball, when shit just everything is going wrong and the score is 64-60 and it's late and people just got to figure it out. There's something in that I really appreciate.
Like they say, opposite attract. This is why me and my boy B get along, because that kind of basketball makes my eyes bleed. Literally, I'm like, please take this off my screen. It's so gross.
But then we watched the Celtics Knicks, and listen, in the Celtics defense, it's not like they were just like jacking threes for the purposes of it. Like they kept getting open threes because it was like swing. The Knicks perimeter defense was not on point, but we watch something like that. To you, that's beautiful, and to me, it's beautiful also. But I don't always enjoy watching it because it feels like I just don't want basketball to become constant 3-point shooting contest. But that's not necessarily what the Celtics were doing as much as it's like exploiting where the Knicks weak pressure points and spots were on defense, and was like, listen, if you're gonna keep giving up this corner three, if you're gonna keep sagging off our shooters at the top of the key, then boom, okay.
And I think that's perfect. That's a great way that you brought that up, Bryan, because the Boston Celtics offense last night was very simple.
Yeah.
They run let's say they run high pick and roll. Oh, you're going to send 2 to the ball? Great. That's the first domino to fall in the reaction. Yep. Once 2 are on the ball, that means numerical advantage on the back end. Okay.
Yep.
Whoever Tatum or Brown gets off the ball immediately. Now the Knicks are in rotation. Shit, we got to scramble. And to your point, swing. Well, I'm wide open in the corner. Yeah, I'm going to shoot that if I'm Derek White or Drew Holiday. I shoot 40% on wide open threes from the corner. And they did. And they made them, right? Or, as we mentioned earlier, drop coverage. Well, if you don't want to step up, that's a walk-up shot. And Tatum, I said this in our group chat last night, that Tatum was on his FU game last night. He's one of those players that I feel like, for whatever reason, I don't know why, fans and NBA Twitter, he's like such a divisive player, and it's so odd. I'm like, this guy's been all NBA first team. I don't understand.
I have theories.
I have plenty of theories. I'm like, I don't know what he's good. I don't know what people's problem is with this guy. Like, whatever. I think he was like, oh, y'all think I'm trash? All right, cool. Let me show you. He was money last night.
I have theories on that, but we just don't have the time today. And I think they're pretty accurate. Okay. Moving off, and I will say this last thing about the Minnesota piece, because we haven't really touched on them. I'm not gonna overreact to one game, but when the trade was made, I was concerned. The karl-Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo trade. I was concerned about, this is going to be a clunky fit for Minnesota, and I'm not sure what the best version of this is going to look like with Julius Randle. And I come away from game 1 being like, that's still probably going to be the case. Yep. I think with Julius Randle, you have 3 options. 1, take some time and just keep trying to figure this out. See if you can have him shoot more off a catch and shoot, have him make quicker decisions, have him be more of a facilitator, which he's actually really good at when he commits to doing so. Like, he's a good passer, like legitimately good passer. The second thing would be moving and start Naz Reid for spacing purposes and have Julius Randle be the 6th man. I don't think that, like, that's a little ballsy. I don't know if that's something you're going to do. And then option 3 is like, it's kind of option 1, you ride it out, but then you try to trade him in January, February, move him, because Julius Randle at the end of the day is an expiring contract, and they might be better served breaking that into 2 role players. This is not a reaction of last night's game. I was saying this overall, as it was happening. I was like, Julius Randle's kind of a weird fit next to Anthony Edwards, who needs more space, and you're giving him less space. But I mean, what are your biggest takeaways in that whole situation?
I agree with you 1,000%. The spacing is clunky, and it's also because Rudy doesn't space out as a 5, right? So he likes. Right. Randle likes to operate at the elbow. You already got Gobert in the paint, right? That's clunky, and it's just bad. That's number 1. Number 2, Mike Conley is 1,000 years old, and I love Mike Conley, but I just like, they need to be better at the point guard spot. And They're just not with Conley. He didn't give them much last year, right? But they were great because they had the Ant ascendants, and Cat was Cat. Look, Cat gets clowned a lot for a variety of reasons, and you can go into whether it's fair or not. This is an excellent, elite offensive player, right? Who spaces at the 4, like who's perfect, right? When you play next to Rudy, because you allow Rudy to be inside, and Cat's like, all right, I'll shoot threes. I'm the best shooting big of all time, as he's wont to say. And he's not wrong, right? Like, he's quite good. And so I just think that this is going to be a work in progress. The bet is still that Ant has another level to get to, which I'm sure he does, but I still just don't like the point guard spot, and the Randall Gobert front court pairing is going to be problematic for a while until they kind of get their kinks worked out. So Minnesota's a team, we talked about over-unders, where like, I don't know what they were set at, but I could see them coming in a
low
little
50s.
Okay, I can see them coming in a little bit under that because it's just a little awkward and clunky offensively right now. And again, this is one. I'm not overreacting off this one game. This is like I thought about this when they were doing it. I'm like, long term, they're thinking, okay, this is good for us. This is the bet going forward. We don't want to have Cat on a big deal, Ant on a big deal, and Rudy on a big deal. I get it, but I think you're going to see a little bit of regression as a result until they, to your point, either move Randall, clear up some cap space, do something different going forward in another year or two.
Yeah, it was like 52.5 or so. I preferred the under there.
Yeah, I can see them coming a little under.
Let's talk about Joel Embiid, because we also want to get to League Pass and wrap this up. Joel Embiid is already sitting games. Injury maintenance was what it's called, and he's going to sit Wednesday. I saw reports that he might also sit Friday. So
yeah, he's not playing this week.
He's not playing this first week of the NBA season. Prayers if you drafted him in fantasy basketball. I did not, because I was like, I'm even dealing with this shit. There's certain players that just like,
but if you drafted him in like the 3rd or 4th round, then yes, that's a good value. Yeah. I wouldn't draft him in the 1st round.
Yeah. Just the rest of your team better be nice. He's not playing back-to-backs, and also this is happening. I don't think he's going to reach that game threshold at this rate. There's, sitting games, and then what if he also actually gets hurt again? Then there's that piece of it as well. And Paul George is also banged up because of the knee, and it feels like Tyrese Maxey is going to have to carry more than people realize. And I don't think this Philadelphia Sixers team is as complete as people think. I think it's a good team. It's a talented team. Kelly Oubre is going to be important. Caleb Martin is going to be important. Andre Drummond. Yeah. Andre Drummond is going to be important. Like Jared McCain is going to see some time, and he's no longer on the injury report. Just where are you at with this Joel Embiid situation and effectively the Sixers team?
Well, I did not want Joel to play the Olympics this past summer. I was like, bro, you already hurt in off the playoffs. Like, what? Why? Can you just please take the summer off, rehab, and get yourself ready for the next season? That's my selfish wish. But who am I? Guy wants to get a gold medal. Like, I can't. All right, man. Like,
had that resume, baby.
Right. I get it. Do you? Now, I do think the right idea for him is, look, he's already won MVP. He's already won. He's already been in the All-NBA, all that. Yo, man, forget that now. The thing that you are now going to be judged on is getting your team. Bro, you haven't gotten to the conference finals yet. And I realize I want to be very clear about something. Getting to the conference finals, the vast majority of NBA players will not do that in their NBA career. It is hard to get to the conference finals. Now, but when you are someone of the caliber of Joel Embiid, it is expected that that's what you do. So that's got to be his focus. I want to be the best version of myself come April. And so I'm on board with this plan, Bryan. I think 60 games should be about what he does, but let's set it up, right? No back-to-backs, obviously. So at most, he's playing twice in a 7-day span, right? We got a game Monday. There's a game Wednesday he's not playing. He's playing again on Friday. Great. I know rhythm and all that. Look, Joel Embiid's good enough to know and get himself together and be prepared. And then as we're heading down to end of the season, you ramp up where he's doing a little bit more, right? So it's going every other game, right? So they don't play back-to-backs that much at the end of the regular season. Get him back on that track so he's getting his conditioning up. And in the postseason, it won't matter because there's no back-to-backs in the postseason. So you're fine. And then you can roll from there. Now, the Sixers team, I agree with you. With him being out, that's going to cause some problems. Andre Drummond will be. So if you play fantasy, hope you picked up Andre Drummond. He's going to get at least 22 starts this year. And I think Max is going to average 30 at some point this season. Like, he's really going to be on a groove where he's just And Maxi's excellent, an elite player. I think Paul George will play more than we expect. Like, yeah, he started the season a little bit of a bang, but I think he'll play 65 at least and be eligible for teams and all that stuff. And if Maxi, Paul George, and Embiid for 60 games, that'll still be good enough to have them somewhere in the top 3. I think, because they should be good enough. And again, none of that's going to matter, Bryan. This team for me, April on is what I want to know. Okay, we did it. You're here. You're in. What are you doing now? That's what I want to know. What are you doing in April? We'll see.
I'm curious about what Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon are going to look like, because I worry that they're going to be overtaxed for their age.
Well, sadly, they will be, because they're gonna have to. Because someone's got to back up Maxi, right? So they're gonna play a ton. And look, Lowry and Gordon are pros, and plus minus monsters, particularly Lowry, but they're all on the wrong side of 35, right? So and they ain't LeBron in terms of size and all that, right? So yeah, it's gonna be some tough sledding. They're gonna have to fight out a lot of games, and ultimately, I don't know if they have enough depth as a team, critical young depth, that when April comes, they're ready to roll, right? Because again, if one Joel Embiid injury and it's over, it done, right? Anything significant and it's a wrap. So we'll see.
Ricky Council the Fourth better be nice.
Well, look, and Nurse, listen, and we'll get to this because this is one of my League Pass teams. The old saying is necessity is the mother of invention, right? Most of these coaches, Bryan, in the league hate playing young players, right? Because they have to win games. Young players make mistakes. And I'm like, but how do you know if they're good or not if they don't play? They're not. They don't practice in the NBA. So it's not like you can see what they're doing on the practice floor, right? They have to get into a game and fuck up and learn. And this is a guy I can count on in the future. But when a coach's hand is forced because of injuries and he has no choice but to play these young guys, well, then you're like, oh shit, look at this, found gold. So why wait for your guys to be injured to do that? Find players now, right? Again, it may cost you early, but so what? It's not the NFL where it's 17 games. It's 82, okay? Like, you can afford to have some lulls and still make plus with the play-in tournament, you can still make it. Like, it's possible.
Yeah, and I think the East is going to be better than people realize is the other piece of this, which could be concerning. Like, if you're Philly, you could mess around and actually fall back into the play-in where they were last year. Like, there's a world where that happens, because I think the East is like we think of it as top heavy, but I don't like Milwaukee's good. There are a couple teams on my League Pass, on my League Pass rankings that are going to be in this mix, so I won't mention them. But I like, there are a bunch of teams who can make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Now, it's not like the West where it's almost all of them, but there are a bunch. All right, League Pass rankings. We'll go 5-1 and we'll alternate. And we will, if you have a ranking, do you have them ranked?
I don't have them ranked. There's just teams that I'm going to watch.
Okay, cool. So I don't have to go in a ranking order either. But I'll say this: one of mine is probably not going to be a playoff team.
Okay.
The others I expect them to be all in the playoffs. So what's the first team for you?
Indiana.
We agree on one.
I love how the Pacers play. I do not think they're a flash in the pan like Atlanta was a few years ago. I think Indiana is legit. There's a team that legitimately goes 10 deep. They play what we call blur ball. Everything is fast. They stack multiple actions. Halliburton's amazing. Nembhard is so good. Miles Turner, obviously Pascal, like they up and down. They just got guys. TJ McConnell was instrumental last year. Like Boston said this after their championship run. The hardest series was against the Indiana Pacers. Even though it was a sweep, that was the hardest series, the team that taxed us the most. I just love this young team. Now, I do have a concern. And one concern is Mr. Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
My guy. He's never going to be anybody's all defensive like that. That's not, and I don't need you to be that. I need you to not be a turnstile though on defense, excuse me. Just be a net neutral. That's all. Just don't crush us on defense at point of attack. And I do worry about him possibly lifestyle a little bit. Like, does he enjoy being a little, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but does he enjoy being a wealthy young man a little too much? Like, I'm not saying that for sure. Look, this league is fucking hard, okay? It is so hard to be consistently good and win in this league. And the best players in this league of this era, they ain't about that, man. They about one thing and one thing only, and that's ball and being as good as they possibly can at that. Does Tyrese have that level of discipline required to be? Because listen, from October to January last year, this was all NBA first team. Like, he was crushing. Then he got hurt, and the injuries also worried me with hamstrings and lower leg injuries. Like, that worries me. So that's my only concern. But Indiana's one of my teams.
Also played in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Listen, I won't. I'll just refrain from the jokey jokes because damn, they're here. I'll just say, like, man, we know what categories he probably enjoys on certain sites more than others. I think Tyrese Halliburton though is sensational. I think he's a sneaky, like, could he get on an MVP ballot type of dude also if he's healthy and plays the requisite games, and Indiana's humming at the rate that they could be. Like, I think they're one of the better coach teams in the league also. Like,
sure are.
Rick Carlisle, and also continuity. Like, you're bringing back
everybody
who was on this team last year that went on that run. Now, granted, I thought they'd lose in the first round, but the Bucks were banged up. I thought they'd lose in the second round, but the Knicks got banged up. But I agree with you that I don't think this is the Atlanta Hawks, who took advantage of a season where them and the Knicks that year had all this rest because they didn't go to the bubble and all these different things. Indiana, comparatively, they're ascending with more dudes. Tyrese Halliburton is basically entering his prime, maybe. And Andrew Nembhard, you mentioned him. Like, he's one of the players I'm highest on to make a jump this year. I think he should be taken more seriously than he has been as a most improved player candidate.
Without question.
I looked up some numbers about, like, all right, who are the guards basically not drafted in the first round over the last 5 or so years who turned a playoff outburst, like breaking out in the playoffs, that turned that into regular season success shortly thereafter. And the names that I got back were like Fred VanVleet and Jalen Brunson. I don't know if he's going to be that caliber of player,
right?
But he's paid like they expect him to be somebody now, because he's getting like 20-ish million a year. So I'm very high on Andrew Nembhard and him being like a real dude in the league, so to speak. And also a full season of Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner being the anchor. Like, I think this team is good.
And Wiseman, they like him back up now because it took him out of Golden State. And it's like that. First of all, that offense is very hard for anybody, much less a rookie player. They're like, hey, buddy, you don't got to do none of that shit here. We want you to rebound, run to the rim, and protect it. Can you do those 3 things? Okay. I like guys who are overqualified for the roles team asks them to do. Right now, overqualified and willing to do the roles a team asks them to do. And if Wiseman is willing at that second part, I think that's a great backup center option for them.
And also, I still like I like Jarris Walker good amount before the draft. So we'll see what he becomes there. Okay. We both agreed on Indiana, so I'll toss it back to you. Give me another one of your teams.
This will be a no surprise. The Memphis Grizzlies.
Okay, not on
Ja
my
Morant's
list.
back. Look, you're adding an all NBA second team, dude. Like, I mean, like, everybody's like, oh, Memphis. I'm like, this was a 2 seed a few years ago. Like, what are we talking about? Like, and I mentioned about necessity being the mother of invention. Last year, when everybody was hurt, they were forced to play Vince Williams Jr. and Gigi Jackson a million minutes because they had nobody else. Oh, lo and behold, look what I found. Undrafted Vince Williams Jr. is actually an excellent player.
Yes.
Shock of all shocks, right?
Very good defensive player.
Right? And can shoot 40% from 3. Like, hello. Like, now he is hurt to start the season. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But you got some guys on this team. And of course, with Desmond Bane, if he gets himself to all-star form, Triple J had to play a lot of lead offense last year. So if he can now bring himself back down to the number 2, number 3 option, he gets back to his defensive player of the year level. Like, this is an elite team. So I'm really looking forward to watch Memphis play this year.
They would be on my list if I had a 6 team. Just, had to squeeze it. So, yeah, because they were on my preliminary list, and then it got down to the end, and it was like, because I am curious about what they're going to look like this year. They were a team last year that a lot of smart people in betting world were saying would win the 1 seed in the Western Conference. And
Mhm.
then that
Mhm.
absolutely did not happen because
Right.
their entire roster just got blown up and torched due to
Right.
injury. But
Mhm.
in that process, you did find some players like coincidentally now Gigi Jackson and Vince
Mhm.
Williams Jr. are going to be out, but when they
Right.
do return and they compete
Mhm.
for minutes, what's that going to look like? This
Mhm.
is also an aggressive front office. Like
Mhm.
they're going to try to make moves midseason. So
Yep.
I always like that. I'm going to go with a similarly chalky pick, more chalky than that actually. Oklahoma City. I mean,
Mhm.
how
I
could
mean,
you
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
You know, I think this team could win 60 games. I think this
Mhm.
team could be the best team in the Western Conference.
Mhm.
And I think this team is likely, not likely, but they're the best bet to come out of the Western Conference out of everybody in that conference. I think
We agree on them. Yep,
they
they're on
should,
my list.
yeah, okay, so they should be the favorites. I loved getting Isaiah Hartenstein. Now the number, that's a lot of money, but
But they can afford it. They can eat it up. It's good for them.
right, it's just business wise, cap wise, it's fine because it's also short term. It makes sense. I think there's a team option on that
Mhm.
deal as
Mhm.
well, if I'm not mistaken. And then Alex Caruso's
Huge.
like
Huge.
the ultimate glue guy who like he's the white dude you always want in your team in the park. That's what Alex Caruso is. Like you want to hang out with him, you want to play ball with him because you know he's gonna defend like the annoying dude that scores on the other team, like Alex Caruso. You could sick him on that dude. Like Alex Caruso is also underrated playmaker. Like I've
Yeah.
been saying this since he was in college. Like when he was at Texas A&M, he was a legitimately good playmaker who didn't score a ton, and he ends up going undrafted. I think he even played in Portsmouth in the Invitational. So it tells you like the sort of path that he got
Mhm.
here
Mhm.
too. Spent some time in the G League, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Like I just loved the Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein
Oh,
pickups.
huge.
And then
The
ascending talents with SGA and Jalen Williams, who I think could be an all-star this year. Chet Holmgren, who also could potentially be an all-star this year. Like it's a really good team.
um Alex Caruso is an estimated plus minus monster. He's
Yes.
all defensive guy. Like again, so remember I said about Halliburton? Like, look, you ain't gonna be Alex Caruso on defense, but here's a guy who shows you I am not your 25 point a game, 3-point step back, whatever, but he helps you win possessions. And folks, when we're trying to win championships, that's what you gotta do. How many possessions are you gonna win? Alex Caruso is so good at that. Dogged, like multiple efforts on defense, 40% 3-point shooter, playmaker, as Bryan said. So I love that pickup. Think about the Hartenstein thing, Bryan. It also got the Thunder to keep him away from everybody else who wanted him. So
Mm.
that's another part that people don't think about when teams make acquisitions. You're like, oh, interesting. Why they? Okay, he may fit, he may not, but he also is now not on anybody else who could potentially face them in the postseason, right? Like that's a huge piece. You mentioned Shea. Shea's already an MVP level candidate, right? All NBA first team last year. He finished top 5 in MVP voting, if I'm not mistaken.
Two
Uh,
straight years at this point,
right.
I think.
So he's already there. If Jalen Williams becomes an all-star this year, which is so we always talk about the hardest jumps to make in the NBA. The hardest is superstar from all-star to superstar status. That is the hardest one to make. Second hardest is from starter to all-star, right? If he becomes an all-star this year, now you got an MVP and an all-star, and Chet is already kind of close to all-star-ish, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they might not need to do anything. If those two things happen, they can just stand pat with what they have. But
Just extend them. Yeah.
let's say those two things don't happen. Guess what the Thunder have? A shit ton of picks and a shit ton of cap space and the contracts with Hartenstein, thank you, and others to make a move to get disgruntled star from wherever and pair him now with Shea and whatever and do the thing. So this team is sitting pretty. They are a huge lead pass team for me. They are my pick to come out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, they're a tough team to bet against. There's a team that I will get to on my list. How so? You have 2 left
I
of
have
your
2 left.
5. Okay, I have 3 left because we crossed on only the Pacers so far.
No, Pacers and
Uh,
Thunder we crossed on.
and
Yeah.
Thunder and Pacers and Thunder, but you had a team that I didn't have. So I'm going to name a team that I don't think you're going to have on your list. And that's going to be, and this is more of a curiosity thing. So I'm going to be watching them a lot, are the Denver Nuggets.
Bryan, we are mind melding. Well,
Oh,
and let me tell you why mine is first.
yes,
I
yeah.
don't think Mike Malone is long for that job. I think he
Yeah.
gonna be out of here
Mm.
before people know it.
So I work with Matt Moore at Action Network, who obviously is in Colorado and has goes to Nuggets games all the time, covers them, and yeah, he's he's told me enough to where I'm like, I really want to be watching that situation closely between coach, GM, and also the development of the guys. Like, all right, this is going to be a very important year for Nikola Jokic, not in terms of like the legacy, quote
No,
unquote,
he's already cemented with that.
but if there's something historic, if he like drags this team, because the perception now is like this isn't the same, even though it's a lot of the same championship core, but they keep losing pieces and losing pieces, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, to a lesser extent Jeff Green, but like losing veterans isn't easy in the NBA. Just ask the young players. And with Nikola Jokic, it's like, all right, is he a walking 50 wins where it doesn't matter and they can still get like a top 4 seed maybe or something along those lines, top 5 seed? Is it even more than that? There are a lot of Jamal Murray questions that people have.
We can get into him if you want.
Like is he falling off, so to speak? Like he played bad, even not just the Olympics, but
he was horrendous in the Olympics and terrible in the postseason last year.
Terrible in the postseason that gets overlooked because of the game winning shots and things of that nature. But I have my questions, and also I love Julian Strawther's game. I was saying this before he got drafted, and it's not just because he's Puerto Rican, but I think this dude is a knockdown shooter. I think they're going to have to rely on him more than he may potentially be ready for. But I think he's going to be plug and play next to Nikola Jokic because of the shooting and the size. I have more questions about Peyton Watson and Christian Brown's shooting, though I think Peyton Watson could be a excellent like hybrid defender and a guy you can play on the wings. Like I think those guys are good, but it may still be a year too soon for them to have such a big role. The Russell Westbrook piece is interesting as hell. I actually think there's a world where it works. I'm just not sure what that looks like. And then I sneaky think Michael Porter Jr. Could have like maybe his best season in terms of efficiency.
Well, that is a people who know me know that's my basketball love language, right? Tall dudes who can shoot.
Yeah.
And so
and also he can rebound.
Right. 6'10". Like my thing is, are you gonna approximate close to what I believe your potential ceiling is? Because if he can get himself to that borderline all-star level, that's a game changer for them. But you mentioned Murray. Murray is the key, Bryan. He is listed as 6'4". He ain't 6'4". And I say that because he's definitely shorter than 6'4".
Yeah, I thought
he's had a bunch of lower extremity injuries over the past few years. And listen, if that knee and the hamstring and all that, if it's just 10%, 12%, where he can't create the separation needed for that step back and all, guys, like that's all it is. Because then his diet is 100% of tough shots. And look, like you can being a tough shot maker is a skill that is necessary. But if your diet is primarily tough shots, not a good sign. And I worry about him. Think about it. He's getting paid, Bryan, basically off that one playoff run. The one run. And it wasn't even the entirety of the postseason, right? It was a few series. So I just, I'm going to be keeping my eye on him. And Mike Malone, I said, look, the other day he came out and said modern day NBA is soft. I'm like, look, when coaches start talking like that, I'm like, man, you ain't long for this job. We already know the relationship between him and Calvin Booth, not great. So I'm worried about this team. I really am. Unless Murray and Porter Jr. can establish themselves as legit twos to Jokic or 1As, whatever you want to call it, I think this team's in some trouble.
Yeah, the question might ultimately be how much can Jokic erase? Like how much can he sort of just cover for? And hopefully this is not the year that he gets hurt also. Like they can absolutely cannot afford that. Knock on wood, because I love that Nikola Jokic like doesn't really miss time. That's great. Okay, so you've had 4 off your list already. You've had OKC, you've had Denver, you've had Memphis, and Indiana. So I have OKC, Indiana, Denver. I will name one more here. I'm going to save the fun one for last. Okay. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Ooh, I like that pick. I was thinking about them.
I am very... I might be more in on this team than I should be, but I'm very in on this team from a regular season standpoint. Now, Jarod and I were both covering the Nets when Kenny Atkinson was there. And I think this is a great fit because I've seen what he can do for big guys in this league. He was on the Atlanta Hawks staff, and Al Horford has credited him in the past with helping encourage him to shoot more three-pointers. Brook Lopez, the same thing. He gets to Brooklyn, and Brook Lopez all of a sudden becomes a 3-and-D center and is not posting up a bunch of times per game. And as a result, has extended his career some years ever since, right? And also, like, it helps that he's a great defensive anchor, although the fall off is basically coming.
It's real.
Because, It's like you're 17 feet tall. What are you going to do, you know? So with Kenny Atkinson, I think Donovan Mitchell could have a career year because with guards in his particular pace and space offense, they're going to have a lot of opportunities with the ball to score, to shoot a lot of threes. All of Kenny Atkinson's teams with the Nets shot a ton of threes. They shot a good amount of threes last year in Cleveland, but also they kind of had to jack up more threes when, you know, Evan Mobley missed time, Donovan Mitchell missed time. But I think Donovan Mitchell could have a big time season. I think Evan Mobley is going to have a career year. I'm not saying he's going to average 25. I don't think it's a huge scoring jump, but I do think he'll shoot more threes, so space the floor better. Maybe he gets to like 18 points a game or something along those lines. I think it'll look a little cleaner with him and Jarrett Allen as a result. Jarrett Allen also has some touch. I'd be curious to see if he shoots some threes because that's something that we were there for too, where Kenny Atkinson was like teasing that idea. It never happened at like a high clip, but there was an occasional Jarrett Allen three here and there. Darius Garland's sort of been overlooked over the course of the trade rumors. And I think as a playmaker, he's going to have a fun time in this offense. They're missing Max Strus for a while, but I think that opens the door for one of Kenny Atkinson's favorites in Karis LeVert, who can come off the bench, 6th man of the year candidate, maybe close some games. Like, people could say what they want about, you know, oh, could you have 3 ball handlers who aren't awesome at defense out on the floor at the same time? And I would say, listen, Kenny did this with D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. You know, like, and this is a better version of that. So,
and if he has Mobley and Allen back there, like, right, to clean up some mistakes,
better, older, more seasoned post All-Star Jarrett Allen, and also what we think is a future All-Star in Evan Mobley. So, like, I think this team could be really, really good. Their over-under was 47.5. I want to say I took the over. It may have been 48.5. Still took the over. I think this could be a 50-win team. And I think in the regular season, this could be a 2 seed. I could see them like winning a bunch of games in the regular season, getting to 2. I still wouldn't pick them in a playoff series against the Knicks or the Celtics. But I mean, like, I could talk myself into them beating Philadelphia. Philadelphia looks like, you know, doesn't look clean or whatever the case may be. But I like this Cleveland team very much.
I think you're dead on with them. And I think Kenny being there, I expect resurgence is the wrong word, but I expect a little more pep in their step from Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert. Look, guys, NBA players are just like regular people. They respond well to environments where they have managers and people above them who they like a lot, who empower them, right? And Kenny and Jarrett and Karis have a great relationship, like from their Brooklyn days. I expect that to be a nice little reunion down there and over there in Cleveland.
Okay, we each have one team left. Mine's going to be off the fucking wall. So you should go first.
Okay, mine's a little obvious because it's really about one player, and that's the Spurs, because who doesn't want to watch Wemby on a regular basis? I mean, I do. So I'm curious to see what is the jump that he's going to make offensively. I expect that to be the part of his game that takes the longest to catch up to where his peak's going to be. But even if he makes marginal improvement, I remember he started the year off shooting like 21% from 3, and it got it up to like, I want to say low 30s, which means he had to shoot really well to get it that high by the end. So if he can be a better 3-point shooter, if he can recognize areas where he can capitalize on putbacks, tip dunks at the rim, and things like that, awesome. And then of course the arrival of Chris Paul, someone who can actually throw him an entry pass, novel concept, and someone who understands the nuances of the pick and roll. Hey, Vic, think about angling your body this way, and then maybe like just little things like that. And he's such a sponge. I'm very curious to see what he looks like in year 2. He's already, by the way, in year 1, a plus player, EPM wise, a DPOY candidate. Like, I mean, but metrically, he was the best defender in the league last year. You weren't going to give it to him because he's on a shit team, but that's the reality, right? And he's the overwhelming favorite to win DPOY this year. So we'll see.
He's like minus 200, which
Yeah.
for a preseason award is nuts, especially because like games played. Like I would not bet that he may win the award, but like there's no reason to just take that at this point. It could actually, I may be shortchanging the number. It might be more than that at this point. But I'm not betting it. I too am interested to see what the Spurs look like, but this team. I'm super curious about this team that I'm going to mention. They're the last team on my list, and they're a team that I've just talked myself into as I've stared at their roster.
Wait, are they in the Eastern Conference?
They're in the Eastern Conference.
Oh man, I have two guesses who I think it might be.
Okay, give me one guess.
It's either the Hornets or the Pistons.
The Charlotte Hornets.
I knew it. No, but you're right though. I know why you're going there. No, I like it. Go ahead.
I wrote about this. So spoiler alert for people who didn't see it, but I did write about why I feel like they're a little undervalued this season. Like there's always a team that makes a jump. There's multiple teams really a year, but there's always a team that makes a jump where we're like, oh, this team is further along than we expected. And to me, it starts with, and I'm not really a LaMelo Ball guy in terms of he's one of my favorite players or anything like that, but talent is off the charts. Like,
yes, clearly,
he just has it, right? But Charles Lee, if I told you that you're hiring a head coach who has the resume of winning 2 titles as an assistant, one with the Celtics and one with the Bucks, and was also on a staff with the Atlanta Hawks that has produced other head coaches under Mike Budenholzer. We've talked about Kenny Atkinson already. And Charles Lee was there for the 60-win team as well. Like Charles Lee has been on some really good coaching staffs, and now is going to a Charlotte Hornets team who coincidentally hired Kenny Atkinson at one point. Then he backed out of it, which in hindsight ended up being the right move. But Charlotte wants to be competitive, I think now. That's been the messaging at least, right? And I think they got the right coach with the right mindset. I think their talent level, like Brandon Miller's really good. If Victor Wembanyama wasn't a thing, didn't
exist,
right? Like Brandon Miller, we'd be talking about him like, yo, could he make an all-star jump now? Now, like he's really good. I don't know if people have seen him or whatever the case may be. I was
very good.
Like coming out of the draft, there was a lot of controversy. About about certain things
for legitimate reasons, right? Like,
but like that team is not devoid of controversy. But like Brandon Miller is really good. LaMelo Ball, if he can stay healthy, which is one of the keys here. God, he is such a fun player to watch on offense.
So
just
exciting.
The playmaking, the scoring. I think he's going to play really well next to Brandon Miller. Want to see that from an extended period. They don't seem concerned about Mark Williams' injury, although it's starting to linger into the season, but they still believe he's going to be very good when he is healthy. He wasn't really healthy last year. We'll see about that. Nick Richards is a backup. I mean, you could do a lot worse. He was productive last year, if nothing else. Trey Mann coming off the bench is a sneaky, important thing there. And I think just looking at their team, and I was writing about this, like you have some role players who can help you win basketball games, which is important. Like, I don't think that Grant Williams is a lost cause. He was actually productive with Charlotte toward the end of last year, and I think he could become a winning player again. Their first round pick, by the way, like he's going to be good as well. I can't really pronounce his name yet. TJ is what he's being called. He's got some game and he could stretch the floor. Like I'm curious to see what his role is going to be this year. Josh Green is like the perfect starting 3 for this team. Miles Bridges, we have to mention him, even though but
another one.
He's a talented basketball player as well. Vasily Micic is going to be coming off the bench too, and I think he's going to be an important role player for them. Seth Curry's still a good shooter out there. Like this is a team that's like. Their over-under was 28.5, 29.5. And I was like, man, they could sneak into the play-in in this Eastern Conference. Yeah, they could get 35 wins, I feel like. That's sort of the number that I have in my head for them. Talent-wise, I mean, look, there are some things that could add up and that won't add up, and I could be dead wrong. But I think this Charlotte team is one of those teams that is better than they're being given credit for. Like, I don't think this is like the Charlotte team of a couple years ago.
I'm with you 100%. I knew you were going to go there or the Detroit Pistons. And look, I agree with everything you said. To me, the Charles Lee piece, critical.
Yes.
It's all about what is his relationship like with LaMelo Ball. Because if he can get through to LaMelo, bro, I love what you do on the offensive side of the floor.
Yes.
But yo, bro, on this end, this what you've been doing, this ain't it.
Especially if you're 6'7".
Correct.
Like, come on.
And if he can get him to buy in to, again, I'm not asking you to be all defense, but you cannot be what you have been, right? Like, you have to know where you're supposed to be. And basic things like high hand contest, like all the basics of how you play competent defense. I think of Ime Udoka and how he transformed Houston last year, got that young team to buy into the defense right on the floor. There's none, all basketball players, not just young players. Offense, everyone loves offense because everyone loves to shoot and score like that. Yes, like get it. Can you commit to this end of the floor? And if he can get that, all those young guys, starting with LaMelo, because if he buys in, then everybody else will. Brandon Miller and everybody else, I think you're right, Bryan. They can surprise him because they're gonna be games where they win just because they're just so fun and young offensively. You got LaMelo, you got Bridges, you got Miller. I mean, they got a bunch of talent, right? Grant Williams, because he's allowed to have a voice with this team, right? And say, guys, like, if we commit to this end of the floor, we can be way better than people think. I think Charlotte could be a fun team this year. Now it could also go the converse, the reverse, right? They start out the season, lose 6 straight, and then it's like, oh, we're used to this, right? Because that's what they're used to, and everybody's just doing their own thing and looking forward to, going out and whatever and all the fun trappings of being an NBA star.
It's just like, can you be better than a top 10 worst defense? Or I guess the more efficient way to ask that question is, could you be a top 20 defense?
Yeah.
Because I do think their offense wasn't great last year in terms of efficiency, but also banged up. Like, I think the offense, if LaMelo Ball plays like 68 games, the offense is going to take a jump. Like, I think this could potentially be one of the better offenses, is like top 15 or so, if that's the case. But we'll see. Ultimately, I do think like they have a roster, they have some pieces. And, I'm still curious about another piece on the team that I didn't mention, Nick Smith Jr. So, like, one of these first round picks from last year who people are overlooking. Maybe he can make a jump. We'll see. But I'm curious about a lot of guys on the roster. But it starts with Charles Lee, LaMelo Ball, and Brandon Miller. Like that, those three for me are why I like this. And in the Eastern Conference, we're like, I'm not sure that they're worse than the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe they are. Maybe Jalen Johnson's just that good. Maybe Trae Young is just that good. Quinn Snyder is also still there. But like in that Eastern Conference, like that 9-10 spot is going to be fought for. And I think Charlotte's going to be in the mix for the entire season. I think that's all for today. We went a little long, but I mean, there's a lot to get into. Thank you to Jarod for joining. We're going to do another one next week on the channel here. And if you like what you heard, like, comment, subscribe, all those different things. And if you're still watching, thank you. We appreciate it. And see you again very soon.